Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Dana and Rachel. We are both book coaches and editors and besties who discuss books not as readers but as writers to draw inspiration from, whether you're looking for a great read or you're looking for that read to get you in the pocket of your next book. We got you covered. That plus a lot of laughs. And I have a feeling that this week, y'all, your girls are tired. So we are on the struggle bus and we are taking you along.
You're welcome. Welcome aboard. Okay.
Listen, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the introduction. So we're back for another one of our bonus episodes. This is an episode that we get every once in a blue moon, every fifth week, and this week it hits at a very interesting time. What I find interesting about it is the fact that this should be when we come back well rested, because we both had what we have deemed our freedom weeks, but neither one of us are rested. No. What happened? Sway, I do not have the answers.
We were talking offline on Marco Polo, and because I sent one to you a couple nights ago, and I was literally like, I was like looking at my phone and just like talking into the video message, and I was like, man, like I was like, this is gonna be like a free week. I've got a little bit of stuff to do, but it's gonna be so amazing. I'm gonna sleep in, and it's gonna be why was I like stressed and scrambling? Because I was like, I have to outline a book in a week. Oh no. And like I was just like, what happened to me?
When you said that, I was just like, because before we talked, I had a feeling that it was going to be a busy one. I just had no idea how busy it would be. But yeah, like it was. So with that said, like what's going on in your world that your Freedom Week felt like it was extra busy?
Yes. Well, so over the past month, I've had everyone in the Academy outlining their novellas, which has been absolutely, I'm sorry, there's yard work happening next door, so if my mic is picking it up, I just apologize. So I had my community and they were outlining, and so what that means, of course, for me is I need to be like a half a step ahead because I'm teaching them and I'm also doing the video demos, right? Of like, watch me do an outline. And I will tell you, in one of those video demos, it was like one of my work sessions that honestly just didn't go well. And they got to watch that happen. Like it was recorded and I like kind of voiced over it and explained what was happening, what wasn't working. It doesn't help that it was like 4 a.m. on a sleepless night, so I was sort of there and I was just like, oh, what's happening? Like, blah. But what's been really, but I think, let me just say one thing about that I think it's really important that they get to see that, right? Like I don't want to cover over that because every writer has those work sessions, like from your newest writer to your most experienced writer. Every writer has those sessions where you're like, I don't know, like, it something wasn't working, or you didn't quite solve the problems that you wanted to, or you're just having a bad day, right? And it just kind of, you do your best and you show up and the results are sort of middling at best, and you're just sort of like, all right, well, I showed up, and then you got to move on to the next thing, and it just kind of is what it is. But I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be productive and to make progress that it can be really easy to forget that everybody has those sessions. And so I think it's important, like it's not brilliant content in terms of, the whole thing was like, all right, well, watch me struggle. Here you go, But for people to be able to see that so that when it happens to them, they don't get discouraged, because it's like, join the club. Like it happens to all of us. And what's been really cool is, doing the Academy over these last few months. At this point, it would be like two full months. It's been really solidifying things that I've already been doing with clients. So like my approach to outlining and the iterative process that I work with for drafts for my clients is really starting to kind of crystallize into my approach to how I walk writers through writing. So when we do our first outline before our first draft, it is very light. There is a bunch of stuff that I tell my writers that I'm like, don't worry about this thing. Don't worry about this thing. Like, if it helps you to think about this, then do it. Otherwise, like, let the first draft tell you what it's going to tell you. And so I crafted the outlining step to facilitate a first draft, which means there's only so much information they have and how to work with what limited information they have. When we get into the second draft, we're going to add layers onto the outline because now we know more and now we're drafting more intentionally and we're going to bring that intention into the next draft. And I think what's so helpful about that is that it helps set the expectations for where you're at in the process, and then you're adding on as you go so you know what information you actually need at which point versus being like, oh, I have to have, I'm sitting down for my first draft and I need to know all of my themes and I have to have all of my, metaphors locked down in my artistic imagery or whatever thing it is that you think that you need. For your first draft, it's like, look, my goal is to get you to the end so you can find out what the story is. Because for any of my newer writers, that's what the first draft is about. The outline is very theoretical for them because they're just kind of looking at a distance from like a top down. And when they get into the draft, I've watched every client that I work with go through, they have an idea what they want their protagonist's arc to be. And then as they're actually writing, they get way more clarity on it. Sometimes it changes altogether of like, it's not actually about this thing. It's about this other thing. And they just don't know until they get into it. So I establish the process to with that in mind and taking pressure off where we don't need to feel pressure at a given stage of the process. So it's been really cool to kind of, codify that into something. It's also been very tiring because, it takes me it probably took me a total of 10 hours to come up, to do the outline. Maybe a little bit more. I have to go back and add up the numbers, but because I always like to report the number of hours that it took me as well, so that they have a real honest kind of understanding of what this looks like. So it's just been really great to get to walk through that process and codify that for myself and also walk my writers through it as well. Yes.
I think watching you go through this process. Okay, so y'all, let me do a caveat. The caveat is that I am what I call auditing her course, and I'm loving it, but I'll talk about that second. Watching you go through this process as someone who I've talked about doing this the entire time, right? Ever since we were even originally met of like, the difference of learning and doing at the same time, which is why me actively writing is so important to me, on top of the fact that there's just personal reasons why I do that. But it is interesting to go through that process. And when you do it yourself, you're like, I didn't consider this, or I did consider this. Oh, what if I said it this way? Or, oh, this is a great example of X, Y, and Z. And there are times when, because of that, it causes you to even just sit still. Now, it can make it harder because when you are the writer, it's like, I'm not here to do that.
Yeah.
I'm here to write, to get this thing done.
Yes.
But your mind is like chomping at the bit because it's saying, well, oh, I remember when such and such had a problem with X, Y, and Z. And now this is something that I can do. Or beginning to, I had a situation with this yesterday. I've been working on these, going through the process of creating my marketing content and copy for my books. And because I'm always like, because it's so busy, I've been telling myself, no, we've got to get this in some sort of synchronized process because I will not, I cannot do that. So as I'm doing it, I'm like, ooh, this will be a great module. And I'm like, Dana, focus.
Focus. Yes, I just will break in really quick and tell you there's literally one part in the trial by fire, my demonstration portion, where I was like, okay, this half of my, so I kind of did a retrospective on one half of my outline and then did it live for the second half of the outline once I kind of just established my own flow. I kind of needed to do that and then review it, and then the other two sessions I did live, and I was doing the first act, I was doing act 3, and I was trying to talk through what I was doing, and it was like a split in my brain of I'm trying to write and I'm trying to teach, and so I had to be like, okay, hang on, I need to work in silence and then go back and record a voiceover of what was happening, because it was competing interests, right, of I'm actually trying to write, but I'm trying to teach while I'm trying to write, so my brain's trying to do two different things. I had to just like walk myself back, give myself a stern talking to, and be like, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to focus, and then we'll teach after.
You know, I do the live writings, and
yes. Oh my gosh,
they
I can't
are
imagine.
I went to the point, was like, yeah, no, girl, because you know me, I'll start laughing and talking to myself, and I just like, hold on, you know, hold my beer. I'll be right back. Let me just get this through. And girl, and I don't even drink beer. They know I was like, hold my beer, just 1 second. Let me just get this out. And then I'll go through and say, okay, here's what I'm thinking. And there are times I'm even just talking to myself like, is this really what I want to do? And kind of going back and forth. But it is. I think I think, number one, I think it keeps it very honest.
Yeah.
Because if you were doing it as just purely, let's say for show or for performance, what you would end up with may vary totally different than what you as the writer intend for that process. And then I think another part of that makes it so yummy is the fact that whenever you are sort of sketching and you are kind of laying tracks so that your train can kind of ride that thing out, it changes. Yes. And it's changing as you're getting more into the groove of what's happening. And I remember once, because sometimes in the process we'll pick up and put down, like I'm writing, and then if I think I'm at a good place where I can show some editing stuff, we'll do one of the sessions will be editing. And a student was like, oh wow, I see this scene it's totally different than when we originally walked through it. And it will be, right? Because you know more and you have a better understanding. So I think watching you go through this, the process, and to see you working through and to see how totally different we are.
I know.
And I know that. I know it. But seeing you, it is so interesting to me. It is interesting in the most fascinating way. So, but I'm excited for you to see that happening and to see where things are landing. So I think as you go through I think I will have a different appreciation for that trial by fire on the other end.
Yeah.
Especially after knowing you for so long and know you want to write and you had to put it down and you pick it up, put it down, and that part, which is totally separate, but it's a part of it. And then to see you getting into your groove and starting to have things locked in. And I just was like, okay, I see where this is going. And so I'm like, yay. So yeah.
Yay.
And as a student, so my thing has been, okay, listen. First of all, because you know I love to learn. So the first thing is listen. And then I've had the hardest time selecting a project because I feel like
I was there for a second. I was like, oh no. I had the hardest time paying attention because their lectures are so damn boring.
No. It is like I wanted to pick something that I could sit and sort of chew on and sort of think through, or a project that I've been wanting to do that with and use this as the opportunity to do it. So so that's been a lot of fun. And I have already changed projects like 3 times, but I think I have the real one now. And then I was listening to the new lesson. No, because then you said, yeah, this novella project. And I was like, Dana, this is supposed to be a novella. Because, girl, I'll end up with 100 and something thousand.
I mean, in all fair, to be fair to you, you work a whole lot faster than me, and the process is like, okay, we're going to do a novella in 6 months because I designed it that way because that's what I can reasonably do in 6 months. You could write 3 whole novels in 6 months. Probably more than that. I don't know. I can never, you fly through those books. So you could probably write a whole trilogy in 6 months. I don't know. So if you end up kind of exceeding the bounds, I wouldn't be surprised if you did a whole novel because you can write a whole novel that fast, I was prepared for that possibility that we were all like, I finished my 1 novella, and you were like, I started a new pen name and I have my 5-book series to start with, and
mic drop. How you like them apples?
We all feel a little embarrassed.
No, I'm not. That's why I'm not. I would never say that out loud, even though that is probably what I'm doing. Okay. Here's what I thought, and then y'all, we're gonna move on because it's not about me. But here's what I thought. I thought there has been a project that I told you a little bit about, like really thinking through and trying to nail down like how I want it to feel going forward. And I really we have in Danger Tales what we call our flagship series. And I think I'm at the point where I'm ready to write my flagship series. So that means a lot of the series building aspects of it are a lot more detail, right? Like you really are trying to distill what those elements are for those main characters and for that the interconnected, because they are interconnected, and just so I was like, I think that's what I want to do, which is what I told you about, when I worked on it over the weekend and or over this past week. Just y'all, I was on a flight and I just couldn't think, and I didn't really want any screen time. I didn't want to listen to a book, so I literally like put on my favorite Drake album and just had the music going, and I'm just starting to lay it out. And by the time it was done, I was like, I think I'm on to something. So I just have to flesh it out.
Were you writing by hand?
I was writing by hand.
Yes.
I was writing by hand. That's why I said I got my baby Rachel on. Listen.
Yes! Oh my God! I feel deeply vindicated by this. That's something that, so for the listeners, I talk about this all the time in the Academy of the benefits of working by hand. We still do stuff, like, we still, like the outline, I'm doing all of my outlining in Notion in a table, but the way that sometimes you can engage ideas differently when you're working by hand. But also, I think for you, especially Dana, and for me, like working by hand, because we're on screen, so like our job is like 99% on screens. So the opportunities that you can take to be off screens, and also how helpful it can be to get away from screens, because your eyes and your brain are just so tired of looking at them that it sometimes is nice to just like, let me do something that's not got blue light blasting into my corneas, So we got her writing by hand, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like if she gets nothing else out of the entire 6 months, I'm like, we got her writing by hand, ladies and gentlemen. I've done it.
For the record, I do like writing by hand. I take a lot of handwritten notes. However, a lot of times for books, because my timeline is so tight,
yes,
it's like trying to transcribe. But for this, I was like, okay, I'm thinking out, but I was in that moment channeling my baby Rachel. I was like, okay, we're going to just sit down. But I am, because I'm the person that loves color and pens, and I have notebooks everywhere. But for this one, I was like, that was my little nod to following directions. You know me, I'm bound to go off at any moment. So I take it where I can. You're
gracing me with like following directions, and you're like, this is my gift to you. I'm following these directions. Who knows where I'm gonna deviate? But this one's for you, Rachel. This one's for you, babe.
Right. My process may have no resemblance to what you are teaching me, but I promise I'm listening.
Okay, so speaking of which, because you were talking about you were on a flight, you just came back from some travel. You went to a conference. So can tell me a little bit about the conference and some of your takeaways, some of your experience. Just I don't know where you want to start, but I'm leading you in, so take it away. Tell me about what you've been up to.
Okay, that sounds like back to you, Bob. I don't even remember what show that was.
Back to you in the studio.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I can't remember if I've mentioned on the podcast, but I was going through the process. I feel like I have, but I was going through the process of completing my certification to be a Hello 7 coach, a certified coach, where we get certified in business, money, and mindset. And originally, in the room, because this is where we're going to it was our intensive, it was our in-person training to sort of wrap up this 10, 11 month process with the bow. Well, almost 11 months. Well, actually right at 10. We started in October and this is August.
Wow. That's great. I can't believe it was that long. I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, what year am I in? Where am I? I know estimated taxes are due in a month. That's that's what I got.
So it was just like this moment of 10 months. And then we had a ton of modules and we had tests at every I think it was a total of 8 tests that we did, and then we had a final, and then we had to do
hours.
20 coaching hours and recording those and giving feedback, and it was a lot. But my biggest, I don't want to say issue, but let's say opportunity, was normally in these spaces, there are not a lot of people in that space doing what I do.
Yeah.
And so I had to be very intentional about why I did in the first place. And so I had an amazing coach that I worked with there, but it really came down to my inner circle students and my students that are ready to start scaling. And I've grown my own business, but I also know I'm not, I always tell people, like, I'm not motivated by money. You know, you'll pay me for my time, but I'm not really motivated by money. So having things that are really structured in that regard are very helpful for me. So I wanted something for our inner circle that was very locked in, sort of. And so part of this training in what I'm getting certified in is having these different, it's called a growth scale, but the scale to help people move from earning $0 to exceeding the $1 million mark, and having very intentional milestones and very intentional projects that they are working through and where they should be with their income goals, and establishing their business, and then when is it time to hire, and all of those things. And so now, since turning in all of my coursework and my final project, let's call it that. I know, I'm just waiting for them to finish. So turning all that in has been integrating that and translating it, if you will, to publishing.
Yeah.
And so going to this intensive, it was so interesting because I worked with my direct coach the whole time, now having exposure to their other coaches. And then when they find out what I do, people coming to me was like, wait, you do what now?
Yeah.
Like your clients, they are what? And so explaining that, and people were like, wow, this really can be applied to everywhere. And it can. I mean, I don't need anyone to teach me how to do writing and publishing, like all of that, like that's locked in. But taking that and really ensuring that as they are, whether they're self-publishing or they're creating a corporation, you know, making sure those things are locked in, making sure that they have their structure together, and also being there for the journey as they ebb and flow into whether I want to do this, and getting distracted by the shiny object, and really building something that can have a sense of that can last them. And right before going, I was having a conversation with my husband, who's my husband and business partner and all that. And we were just talking a lot about me always looking at it through the lens of why I do it, right? Like me starting business in the first place was always about my kids and my family. And so it's in that sense, that was always my driving force. But I sometimes underestimate the fact that I was already a business owner and I'm already sort of business minded. So when I'm talking to my clients who are primarily creatives, that's one of those things where having structures and like, this is what we're looking for. So it's in reality, for me, it's like a diagnostic of their business and how they are taking and treating their books and their series as a product in their business, and ensuring that their business can sustain them and sustain them leveling up. Right. And so, so it was great. We just had an opportunity to sit down and look at my programs, which was very interesting, and getting feedback and all that. You know, me not karate chopping anybody for getting too close, and you know, talking about that, and really projecting, if you will, like what's coming, and or like what's coming, because I don't want to push it away. What's coming, and I'm getting really, really excited about it. Like excited, like I could see a lot of work. And it felt good to know that a lot of the changes and nuances that, like little changes and adjustments that we've made to our mentorship because y'all, I've explained it, but we sort of have three tiers, right? We have our mentorship, then we have inner circle, and then we have DTW. And ensuring that those three tiers are playing nicely, because I do have clients that are in all three.
Yeah.
And I do have clients that are in one. And then, being really intentional about what those differences are. And especially because at the end of the day, I tell my students all the time, I teach one thing. My structure is one thing, right? We were writing addictive novels, point blank, period, all the way through. So whether you are in a community setting or you are in a one-on-one setting, same thing. It really is about like, how are we working together, which we're talking about, and how involved I am in their business, which I find so exciting. And so we did that. And then the final thing, I spent some time, because I did already have that set up, thinking about like, what does the next 3 years, 5 years look like for Danger Tales? And I am pretty locked in on what that looks like. And so now it's just about walking that thing out, and helping students, get to their point and really folding everything in so that I can see people start making some changes in their business to really level up their earnings and level up their business and their platform.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of, this will probably end up sort of dovetailing into the conversation that we're sort of going to have after this. But I want to highlight something that I just think is really important that doesn't always quite get covered when it comes to writing, which is, and it's coming to mind because you and I actually talk about this like quite a lot, and it comes up pretty frequently on the podcast as well, right? But I was reminded that even Brandon Sanderson will say this, whether you are traditionally published or whether you are indie, as a writer, you are running a small business. You are responsible for your business. And that means that whether you have, whether you're working with a team of you have your agent and you have your editor and you're working with the publisher, or whether you are kind of doing all of that on your own or with a self-selected team, indie, you are running a business. And I think knowing that and understanding that will help you navigate the world that you're in, because it isn't just, even if we want it to be just the creative stuff, if at least if you want, if you're looking to make whether it's make your full-time living as a writer, or just want to make some money off of your writing, or honestly, not even if you want to make money, if you want people to find your book. It's not even even if you're not looking to make any money off your book, but you do want people to know that your book exists and read it, it's a small business, and you have to you have to run it that way. And so I love the approach that you take to your writers, because most of your writers, if maybe not all of them, want this to be their main source of income and are looking to bring in a significant income from their writing. And so having that, having business training, and of course you've built businesses, you know what you're doing anyway. And so having that additional training for scaling and what that looks like, and being able, being able to translate that for writers so that they can actually scale a business of being a writer, that's huge. And it's not actually something that you get very many places, because you sort of have, and a lot of times they tend to be, if anything, they're sort of two separate things instead of together. It's either, this is the business stuff or this is the creative stuff. Being able to bring that together so that you can marry business mindedness with creative vision, and finding, the pocket in between those two things, that is such an asset. And I don't see it very often out in the industry. And so I love that you're able to take, and watching you kind of take what you've learned from Hello 7 and then translating it into what does this look like for authors specifically. I mean, that is just an unbelievable asset. So I think that that's so important. Again, it's one of those things that kind of gets underemphasized, is you are a business, you're a small business owner. And so you gotta do it.
Yeah, and I would say, and in my mind, they're not a small business. If there's someone, I'll just throw out an example. When I went to the romance conference, people that were up there talking are earning $2, $3, $4 million a year. not cumulative.
Yeah.
Right. If you go to something like 20 books that have changed their name now, that they are a husband and wife publishing brands that are $1, $2, $3 million a year off of that. It's usually one that's the author and the other one is along for the journey, and now it's a collective vision, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how it's always been for us, right? It's that it was me, and then as it grew, it's like now it's my husband and my children, and now it's a small team that's involved with that vision, and so it may not be a small business, right? It starts off that way, but you really are creating an ecosystem, right? And so I think I find that the more that that's shored up and I can say, check, that is done, it makes the creative side so much easier.
Yes.
Because it's not creeping into your mind of like, okay, even just, I was talking to one of my clients and we were going over, because she was looking to hire a new editor for her team and like going over stuff like that. Like those are business decisions that you have to do and you have to make. And, we're starting to work on stuff to create a nonprofit and, taxable implications of foreign content money and, all that stuff. It's real. It's real out here in these streets. But what I think is so amazing is the fact that if there is a way that you can create in a way that has that in mind, right? For me, it's like creating your stories to be in a position of scale. So that then you can do your business stuff and that your admin or whatever you do, and that's all done. And then I can just sit in the pocket of being the writer. But I think it's empowering. I think it can be a challenge, and it's probably why it's not talked about a lot. Yeah. But I think you would have that challenge anyway. Yeah. Right? And I think the more that we move forward, whether you are exclusively working with things that are in sort of like Amazon world, or you decide you want to do more, you want to do some direct, the more that you having that structure already there for you just makes the decision making process that much easier. And or they have a coach that they can just be like, hey coach, hey Dana, can I talk to you? We just recently had an author that just signed like a 3-book deal, right?
Nice.
Like, it is, but it's like one of those things of like, okay, now what, right?
Yeah, now you need someone you can be like, okay, what do I do now? Like,
right? And it is. It's just like, I mean, I love it. I love having the balance because it's great to take off one hat and put on another, but I know that that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And so, so being in that room and talking to my other coaching friends and people just being always shocked about what I get to do and what we get to talk about was great. And it just made a lot of decisions that I have coming up with Danger Tales just feel, I think, a little more concrete and very, very, very ambitious. And so, which, that's how we do.
We love an ambitious girly. We love an ambitious girly. Yes!
You're going to be dragging you along. When I send a message, I'm about to do this thing. Yes, I've already signed you up for it. I'll tell you the details later.
Heck, honestly, those kinds of like text messages are a little bit like, you're like, oh, hey, I talked to this person and I sent them your name. Like, hope that's okay. And I'm like, all right, I'm in. Like, whatever we're doing. Or you're like, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And before you've even defined terms, I'm like, do you want help? Do you want someone to come? Like, I will fly out to Houston. Do you need me to come in? We live closer now. It's only a 7-hour drive. I can drive myself anywhere.
You be acting like you're around the corner, but it's all good. I got you.
It feels like around the corner after being 25 hours away from you. So it's sort of like, I don't know, 7 hours versus 25 is like, that's a day trip. Well, not in one day, but you could do the drive in a day.
I was sort of thinking about that when I was in Atlanta. Is Atlanta like the same distance?
I think Atlanta's a little bit closer. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours. I could be right. It might be. I might look it up on Google and it's like, this is 10 hours away, But I think it's more like 5 hours away. I'm looking it up right now because that's what I need to be doing on this podcast. That's the way to spend. It is 5 hours away, so it's not a ton closer, but it is closer by a couple hours.
But yeah, I think so overall, just like going from city to city, ending there, having some time to talk about things with my coach was really great. Just sort of shoring a lot of things up. And now, over the next week or so, I'm going to be like writing everything out and putting it in with my plans. It kind of feels interesting because I normally don't think about the next year plans until November.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you're kind of
to
starting that
have
process earlier than normal.
exactly, which feels interesting, but I think I honestly feel like I like it. I think like almost like putting it in pencil and like a shadow of it, because what
Yeah.
it's doing now is helping me to know how I really want to end this year with enough
Yeah, yeah.
time to put it into place. Like I think I already have our topics and everything for our retreat
Oh
that's in
my god.
December. Yeah, I
Holy
know.
moly,
Who is she?
man.
Listen,
Really? I'm like, holy cow.
listen. Because girl, I keep getting all these people like, when we gonna have a in person? When we gonna have it in person? And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. So just like already starting to get those things, and I've already started envisioning our workbook for the retreat.
Oh
Because
my
girl,
god. Oh, your work. Oh, you said workbook, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait.
listen, she did not come to play. Okay. Yeah, so like that started coming. So taking notes on that and it feels good. It does feel like, okay, making sure everything is in its pockets. Cause I mean, I still have writing and still have stuff that we're doing now, but, it makes, it has the creative juices just like,
Yeah.
no words for that.
Well,
It's like,
and yeah, when you come up and you get around to November, right? Just like you said, you're sort of like starting to have it in pencil now, and then you go through a couple more months where you're sort of starting to implement stuff, and you're wrapping, other things up, and you have that little bit more clarity on the plan that you can bring in then in November, right? And so it's just sort of like the way that it's kind of maybe layering on a little bit as you go by starting a little early. Man, I cannot wait to sit down and talk in November, December, when you're getting those like plans locked and
yeah.
loaded.
Yeah.
Now
And
when
then
you're offline, I have to find out what you're doing for your retreat because I'm like, wow, what you're doing? What I need to know. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh
I
my
have to wait to the end of
God.
this
Yes.
recording.
I know you do. Right. I mean, and it is because, normally, and I've been really thinking about if we want to open it up because normally it's just for clients and people look forward to it because it is like, it is meant to be a true setup. And so what's
Yeah.
really dope is that I'm starting to think about that. And then I have another sit down with my coach in September. We're gonna be meeting up. We're gonna go to Brooklyn. We're gonna have a weekend in Brooklyn to sit and
Oh
like kind of go
man,
back over everything. So between now and the
that
next month,
rules.
I'm going to have everything written down, and I want to have my sort of implementation plan sort of in place, and what that looks like for what workshops we're hosting, when are we doing boot camps, when are
Yeah.
we going to be. So all of that for next year, I would love to have it all sketched by September. So yeah, I mean,
Yay!
let's go. So yeah, that's why I'm tired. My brain is working overtime. But it feels good, and I don't know. I always like when you go into those sort of meetings or situations and what you come out with isn't far from what you already had.
Yeah.
Right, especially if you've spent time on it. If you haven't, then of course it's going to look totally different. Like there was a lot of people that was still putting it together, but I wanted to have it done so that I like when I'm creating programs that I can get feedback, but not too soon before I'm
Yeah.
done translating it into the way I see it, so that when
Yeah.
I get the input, it represents my concept and thoughts and what I had in my heart when it came to me. So that was really good too. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty dope. And it makes me think about one of the things that we additionally want to talk about, because I think this is sort of rolling into that of like, what does it mean and what does it feel like when it comes to people working with us? You and I have
Yeah.
had this discussion of, especially because we both are editors. We're doing this podcast. People hear both of us and reach out. And that there are things that I would say are pretty similar because we both talk out our processes, especially if we're stuck and we have done it for years now
Oh yeah.
together. but there are some things that are very, I think, unique and different, other than the fact of tone and delivery, but that's, very unique to us. So if someone was like kind of having that thought of like, what does it mean to sort of work with you and be a part of your Story Cipher world, like what is that like, and how would you describe that?
Yeah, so I think so first of all, like I have sort of niched myself into like I'm very much like crime and fantasy. If that's one of your like jams, like then I'm so ready to like jam with you, right? And there's a few different ways that it can look, but I find that when you're working with me, I'm very committed to understanding your vision and helping you actualize it. So like when I do a diagnostic, and I've gotten a few clients, so there's like two main ways plus, sort of like a secret third way. It's not really a secret, but it's sort of like, you can coach with me. If you have a full diagnostic, right, you can coach with me if you're working out a project, as in it is not finished, or you're trying to revise it and you want to work with me regularly to, like, in an ongoing capacity to either form that project, create that project, or revise that project. A diagnostic where you have a full manuscript and you bring it in for feedback. And then the academy is sort of like you're working independently, but you're looking for community, you're looking for regular contact, a place to get your questions answered, but you're sort of like working on your own, but you want some structure and you want to be able to get your questions answered and be with like-minded people who are writing in genres like you are. And if someone brings me a full manuscript, the first thing that I do, so I read the whole thing, but rather than just sending you like a whole pile of notes of like, here's what I think about your manuscript, here's stuff that needs to be changed, here's and I've had a lot of clients come to me where that was a developmental edit that they had gotten, but the editor never asked them what they were trying to do, what their aim was in the first place. And so I calibrate my feedback based on what are you trying to achieve? What is your story meant to be about? And then we evaluate what you have versus what you were aiming for. And tailoring that feedback toward actualizing that vision. And then, coaching is sort of more in that advisory capacity where I walk with you as you're drafting. You can bounce ideas off of me. My clients, they'll send me stuff and they'll be like, I had this new idea. Is this stupid? Like, it's just like, but also, and this is where, and so, you and I both sort of are similar, I think, in that way. And another place where we overlap, even though we approach it a little bit differently, is I also talk to my authors about their, about finding their niche and finding, like, where do you want to position your book? That is vitally important to me. So most of the writers who work with me, they're either on kind of like a slower, like, time scale, on a slower schedule, and or they're looking to get an agent and publish traditionally. That tends to be the authors that end up coming to me. And so kind of first we work out their story and so rather than so we start with what they're trying to do, and then we find, okay, what's the market for this? So we sort of, that's kind of the order, right, that we'll work in. And we still work with comps, and we still are trying to find who are the kind of people that are going to want to read this book. So I still, and I will talk to them about building an email list. I've got a couple of my clients that I'm like, all right, here's the kind of content you can be writing on an email list. Here's where you want to position your book, because this is the kind of, this is the sort of niche that you're falling into. And we work that stuff out on the basis of whatever it is that they're doing. So that's kind of, I'm not sure if I fully answered the question, but that's kind of the general, what it looks like to work with me and how we sort of approach the creative work. So, you're working with romance authors. You also do some fantasy as well. You work in fantasy as well. So tell me a little bit about because you'll start with branding, you kind of, we'll start there and we sort of do that almost second. So talk a little bit about your process and what it looks like when you're working with your clients.
Mm-hmm. I think, I will start with this. I sort of think about it as in depends on where they are right now. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of times I would prefer to start with branding. Yeah. But a lot of times you don't know that until you've written a couple of books.
Yeah, for sure.
You can have an idea. The good thing about romance, you can say, I'm romance. And it could go a whole bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
And so that helps the fact that, if you sort of do it out of order. So a lot of times for me, it's about like, honestly, like where you are and how hands-on do you want me to be as your coach. So there can be everything from you're in DTW and you can get questions. I review samples. We have workshops. We have co-working time, which it's still me at a distance, but for everyone that's in there, I know what they're working on. I know their niches, like, especially if they submit writing samples and I'm reviewing opening chapters and things like that. But then all the way to someone who is in the mentorship program where I'm working one-on-one and I'm reading your manuscript, giving feedback, here was your niche. This is what you were going for. Where are you? How do we make it align? Now write another book, kind of thing. And so there's a spectrum. I think one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this is because when you hear editor, people have a whole, there is a spectrum of what that means. And for me personally, as someone who I did this work before I would have even said, okay, I am a developmental editor, right? I did it probably almost 10 years before I would say, okay, developmental edits is like where I am in my jam. But I have people where we do developmental edits, y'all, I'm air quoting if you're listening, before they've even written a book. And we go through and we make sure we lay the groundwork for their entire series before they write a single word. Now they're writing words in in their document, but before they ever even write a book. Then I have other clients where we do a developmental edit in a traditional sense, in that once they've written that 130,000 manuscript, I get it. And then I'm working with them over the next anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 years, depending on the client, to make sure that we get to the place where they want it to be. And so I think a lot of times it's like where you are, how much assistance you would like, and whether it's sort of this like a window because we're just working on this manuscript, or there are some clients where we would just move from project to project. We've been working, my longest client at this time, we've been working together over 20 years, right? Wow. So, and then the more new, I guess most recent will probably be maybe 3 months-ish, because that's when they joined the community, but they'd already been to several of my workshops and things before. And so there's a spectrum. I think a lot of times when people hear editor, I like when you like saying now book coach, or even now I think I'm going to say more story coach, because the reality is there is a spectrum. And for my clients, you really aren't thinking about one book. Right? For you, it could probably be a little bit different, but in this space, if you really want to do something, like you can't think in a single book capacity. The other thing that I would say is a huge difference is the fact that my clients are regularly publishing. I will say that there are outliers because they just like working with me, but most of them, they are writing and they are publishing, and we are getting some understanding of what they did good and what they can change, and they are moving to the next one. And so it's always interesting when I have the ones that kind of come in seasonally versus like if I look at another client, they've finished 4 books, what this person is still working on the same manuscripts. But it's like that. And so I think the commonality in all of it is the fact that at all times I'm holding space. I'm holding space for what they want to do and who they want to be, because they are a writer or they are a novelist. And listen, I even have clients that they're not even writers, right? They have teams. They have ghostwriters. They use AI. Like I have no problem with that. And so, but at the same time, they still have to have a very solid brand. They have to have a very solid understanding of their genre and their niche and reader expectations. And so those things are my jam. How they go about it, after that, it differs. And I like being a part of all of it because it really does challenge me. And how do we get it on track? As an example, when someone's working with a ghostwriter, I'm not working with the ghostwriter. Right? I'm working with this person. And so teaching them how to see and understand, teaching them story flow, teaching them how to work with their outline, and then to be able to communicate that to their writer and how to do that. I love it. Like, I mean, I just love the spectrum of the person that's writing the individual words to the person that's not, but you still have to get to the place that you want to be because there's a goal and there's a deadline. And so with that said, I think it's interesting when a person comes to you. And I think the last part of that becomes, it's also interesting what you do after that. Because someone who just brings something on a one-off and you give them, you know, they do a diagnostic and you give them notes and feedback and then they move on, versus someone who is in your world and they have those notes and they write again and then they come back. And then you're like, okay, you did better on this, this, and this. Now I need you to do this. Like, nah, I need you to bring it. No, I need more romance. I need more heat. No, I need some guns a-blazing, you know, whatever. And so that when we get back and then they're getting their reader reviews and it's like, oh my gosh, the character development and this, that, and they're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you sure did. Now do it again. You know?
Yeah.
And so, and watching them evolve and becoming more confident and knowing, like, you know, I have this one client, we've been working for a while, and she's gone through different iterations and she's finally like, I think it's because I really am meant to write dark romance. And now we're like, okay, well, what does that mean for you? Because she doesn't want to do organized crime and, you know, all these different things. And us having that discussion of then how do you shift your reader expectations? And what does that mean for you? And is that in alignment with what your financial goals are for your brand, right? So again, going back to like why I did the certification, right? Blending and merging, and so that is one cohesive conversation. And so it is, I'm holding space and holding up a mirror so that as they're moving forward, they get to write the stories they've always wanted to tell and be able to position it in the marketplace with confidence and level up their brand, and then that they get to continue to do what they wanted to do. And I've literally seen, you know, several clients going full time over this past year, and it's like, it really is. It is. And so it does. It just, you know, doing that, you know, whether it's how they come in or what their next steps are and how we sort of stay in this space. And granted, it's not for everyone. Because, listen, y'all, I am who I am. But also being able to, I feel like my heart always loved that the fact that people are trusting me with their dream. Because at the end of the day, give or take a few of my clients, this has always been their dream, even when they didn't know it was their dream. Because someone told them they couldn't. And even in that, you know, when I'm doing the one-on-one coaching, or I'm sitting down and we're doing their one-on-ones, I'm almost always battling that, because if they don't shake the fact that I can't, writers don't make any money. If we don't knock that mindset out, it's not going to make room for what you really can do. It's going to always be a barrier. And so I get to do that. And so that just takes it to where I'm doing everything from, you know, how are the babies? How are you doing? How is your husband? To, you know, how did that recent book, you know, how did it go? You know, did you get a book bub? You know, did you decide to sign that contract? You know, talking with them over and, you know, elements of their contracts, not as legal representation, but just as their coach, and knowing that, like, you know, this means you're in obligation. It means you need to write 2 more books and they want to have options for the next ones, you know, like having those conversations and doing it in a safe space that they can trust me, and trust that for many of them, I know their spouses, or I know of them, and that I'm thinking not just of them, but of their goals and their families. And I don't take that lightly, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Like, it's nothing better ever than that.
Yeah, I think we have the coolest job in the world. Like, honestly, you know, being able to help people actualize creative goals. And because I will often so a lot of the times the writers that will come to me are writers who've been like trying to write this damn book for years. And they have like, they've sort of like drafted and redrafted, and then, they come to me and they're like, man, I don't know, I've been trying this thing for, X amount of time. And then we get to sit down and I get to walk them through the process of like, this is what you need to do. And it's amazing because when you particularly like in a coaching or even in like in a community capacity, it's allowing you to make time to show up for the thing that you care about. Like, and it's honestly, and this is a phrase that you use, it's kind of a forcing function. Like you have to you show up for that call and you're like, did you or didn't you? Right. And it just gives you that fire to, because you sort of have something to be accountable to, someone to be accountable to show up for the thing that between you and yourself, you have said that you are wanting. And so then, so my clients who otherwise might be, might get busy, because life gets busy. We were just talking at the beginning of this podcast about like, I don't feel like I've slept in a few days. I don't know. Everything's so crazy. And where normally you could sort of be like, I don't have time for it. I'm telling you, when you gotta show up, I'm very nice. I am very like friendly and very sweet. But if you gotta show up to a call and look me in the eyes and be like, I didn't do anything, you maybe do it once, and then you come back and you're like, all right, I did some work. And I'll just get that, that blank kind of face that I do, and I just smile at you and let you talk, and then all of a sudden it's like that inquisitor's light on you, and it's like, what did you do last week? And I'm just smiling away, just waiting for you to tell me what you worked on. But it's like, people who have struggled with a single work for years, and then they show up, and then I'm like, all right, step 1, we're doing this thing, step 2, we're doing this thing. And then when they get stuck, it's either let's troubleshoot so that you can get unstuck, or what are you avoiding? What are you not what are you not willing to do? What are you afraid of? And it's a little personal, and I'm not a trained therapist. Like, I'm not, giving not here for psychological evaluation, but it is about, sometimes you got to unpack, like, all right, what's making you like resist this? What are you not, but it allows them to break through so that they can do the thing that they've been wanting to do. And that, and honestly, every single one of my clients' projects, I'm pumped about. I think all of them are awesome. I think all of them are uniquely wonderful. And sometimes too, you just need someone to believe in you, right? Like someone that's gonna be like, hey, this is actually a good idea. If it were a bad idea, I would tell you. And I have some clients where I've been like, I wouldn't do it. Like, if you're gonna do it, but I wouldn't do it,
And those men, they drive me nuts. But go ahead.
Well, yes, right. And then you're sort of like, okay, how do I say this without stifling your creativity? No.
Okay.
Like, you're like, don't do it.
Oh my gosh, that is so true.
But when we tell people that's not a good idea, it means that they can also trust us when we're like, no, this is awesome. And then, because they can't always see it, we can be like, no, this is really cool. Don't do that thing over there, but this thing rules, right? And you can kind of just like help people. They have someone to sort of like, you're like the flight attendant, right? If I'm not panicked, they don't have to panic. They're like, all right, okay, we're doing okay,
Yeah, and even when you're in that space of, you can say like, okay, I wouldn't do that. Okay, have you considered? Because it can become this ping pong that can happen, that you can have this interaction and engagement around something, and it's almost like bringing it to the light so that you can see it clearly. And so, and a lot of times it's just them having to explain it or hearing it outside of their head, so that we can be like, okay, so how does that sound to you when you say it out loud? Listen, y'all.
Sometimes that's all you gotta do.
My favorite question is, how do you feel about it now that you heard yourself say it? Listen, who will sit silent while they chew on that? Okay, don't worry, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I will say about both of us, and I think we would 1000% agree, even though I don't believe in 1000% because it's not a real thing, but 100%, fully agree, is I think one of these things that it does is it also can teach you your own unique level of patience right? Because a lot of times when people come to you, whether they're coming to you and they've had this thing for a long time or they've had it in the drawer for a long time and it's sort of haunting them, right? Like it's always there. It's always the thing that is not done. Or for me, that the person is writing this thing and they feel like people said it should be doing well, but it's not doing well, you know? And it's almost like a health journey of like, you didn't get here overnight.
Yeah.
And it won't be solved overnight. However, you know, whenever you are in a collaborative situation like coaching, it means that my resources are your resources.
Yep.
Your resources are my resources. And it becomes that it truly is that two heads are better than one situation. And so now you can have this opportunity where, yeah, you may have had it in the drawer for a long time and you may have worked on it before, but you probably didn't work on it like this.
Yeah.
And that is its own form of creative play. It's almost like this permission. It becomes a very engaging playground, and it can also be another level of a challenge, especially if you are someone who is working full time or you have young kids or the season of your life is just being straight up disrespectful. Life is life. Because it happens to the best of us. But I think what happens is when you find that person that you can work well with, that is not going to let you slack, not going to let you chillax, but do understand you and wants the absolute best for you. I think it's an amazing thing to see yourself thrive in that space.
Yeah.
Like to give yourself permission to do the work.
Yep.
Look, to do the work, you know. Y'all.
What is that, Julia and Julia?
That's right.
Yes.
She did not do the work, you know. Y'all love that movie. So, you know, to do the work, to show up and to really see at the end of the day what you are made of. Because the reality is, I tell them, listen, I'm going to be here either way it goes.
Yeah.
You can do it or you can not. Now, people who don't do won't be with me long. Because I don't show up. I don't care if you pay me. I'm not showing up here for giggles and grins. Right? So that's just facts. But, you know, to give yourself permission to show up. And what can happen when you commit with the academy to 6 months? You know, with the mentorship, 1 year, right? You know, a program, you know, 6 months, 1 month, right? What can you really do when you commit to giving this dream that you've had a little TLC? Showing up, being consistent in your own way, but being consistent. And I think that is one of those things that through our guidance, that it will help people to see and know what that answer is for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think there's anything better.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and you know, I think too, like something I was thinking about is because you were talking about this earlier of people being like, you know, you can't make a living as a writer, and there's no money in being a creative, and you're like and you know, I do think that there's an amount of like there's some disillusionment that's happening in the industry right now on kind of a larger scale, and there's a whole host of reasons for that, but you know, people are feeling like, you know, let down by certain aspects of the creative life or about just trends that are happening in the industry that just make you kind of, but you know, you've got someone who just like has a huge platform and they write a garbage book, but they got a $500,000 deal, and you're just like, oh, that is really depressing, you know. But like, I mean, for creatives, right, where they're feeling like, man, I work so hard and all of this, but the opportunity to like help rewrite that narrative of like, this is like, it does not have to turn out this way for you. And again, not all of my clients are looking to make a full-time living on their writing. And for them, it's like, okay, then we just are looking to find the people who want your book, which is still business practice of getting it into the hands of the kinds of people you want to find your book, who will love your book. But I think that sort of disillusionment, like it's not true. Like we get the chance to like help people rewrite that narrative and experience wins in their, you know, in their own creative life, and you know, find agents or find their audience or whatever that thing is, and bring that sort of back to the world a little bit. And I don't think it's universal that everybody's feeling this way, but I've just been kind of noticing a lot of that cynicism about creativity and creative life, and there's actually there's a way forward, and being able to help people find what their way forward is, you just can't beat it.
No, and I will say, listen, one day I believe Rachel is very much capable of writing the next great American novel. That's not Dana's goal. Listen.
Thanks. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. Holy cow. There's a level of confidence I was not prepared to receive today of all day.
Well, listen, catch it, girl, catch it. Listen, Dana, I just want you to be able to put your feet up, grab your glass of wine or tea or chocolate or coffee, and forget them babies asleep in the other room. Listen.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I want that too. I want to read your books and get that for myself.
And I think there's space and room for all of it. That's why I think I don't pay attention to a lot of the chatter. I just don't. I've been around long enough to know it's always something that they're chattering about. So I think you can be on both of those spectrums and still have a very fulfilling career, but also enjoy the process, because I don't just like the end. I like the whole thing. I want to enjoy the writing. I want to enjoy the plotting. I am very much what would I call it? Greedy. I'm greedy. I want to enjoy all of it, every bit of it, and with everyone, as much as I write with every book, I want to have that. I want to have that feeling because it's something that brings me joy, and so. And there's something to be said to have joy on this side before it ever touches someone else's hand, and then to be able to give that to someone else. And I think that's something that a lot of professions cannot say. And I always say to my clients that the reader-writer relationship is one of the most intimate relationships you can ever have. And people don't, I've never heard anyone else say it this way, but I'll say it this way. Because when they say yes to your book and they say yes to your writing, they are giving you permission to sit inside of the most sacred space in their whole entire body. That is inside of their brain.
Yeah.
You are in between their ears, whether they're listening, whether they're reading, it is going straight from their eyeballs into their brain. And that is something that really is insane when you think about it, especially since when we be writing, and somebody's like, "You ain't writing them dirty books."
We love them dirty books.
Listen, first of all, I'll be thinking, how old are you when you call them dirty books? But whatever, I'm not judging.
That sounds like some old Rachel Bull to me.
You're writing them dirty
books.
And then I was like, no, we call them steamy. And she was like, no, I want them dirty. Okay. All right.
Ma'am, you might be looking for erotica. I'm not sure, but we should talk about it.
Girl, listen, I'm here for all of it. But, just knowing that, there's space for all of it. And I would just say, on the heels of this very free form bonus episode, I would say, what is that for you? If you are listening to this, have come this far, you are listening to our podcast, and we are telling you about making your writing a little bit better, giving you a little more clarity, giving you some questions to think about, to ponder on, to chew on. I would say to you, what does your process look like, and who are the people, or what are the tools that you have at your disposal? I tell my clients all the time, I want to be the best tool in your toolbox, right? And so that when they're doing something, what would Dana say? Yeah. Because then that means that at any time it's almost like when you have children, they can go out and be courageous and have all this energy and be infectious when it comes to their life, because they have some place to come back to that's safe and have a sense of security there. And I think that that's something that hopefully, I believe I do, but that I'm always prayerful that I provide. And I think, so finding out where you are in your process, is that you're at a place where maybe you're stuck. Maybe you don't want to do it alone. Maybe you're cool with doing it alone, but you want to make sure that you did what you thought you were doing and that did it land, okay? Yeah. Does it translate? And then every once in a while, it's I always wanted to, I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And that's cool too. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Or I've done a million books and I wrote a bunch of books, but I'm not loving it like I used to.
Yeah.
There's a place for you too. And I would say, even if it's not us, first of all, keep listening to the podcast. Yeah. Don't get it twisted, okay? Even if it's not us,
yeah,
I'm just saying, even if it's not us, maybe finding a space, because
for sure.
Every person that gives themselves permission to do this, you are making room for the next person. Right? You just are. We are not islands, even if we don't know each other and we don't work together. And so I would say, find that space that allows you to be creative and seen and heard and challenged, and don't give up. Don't give up, because this is my youngest client has been probably 12, and the oldest, I don't want to say ages, right? That's older, right? And so that means there's room at this table for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes even our conversations, whether we are talking about books that we love or don't like, or we can have appreciation for it, where it just makes it a whole lot of fun, because we are just riffing on the thing that we love to do and hoping that we can help someone write their next story better than their last.
Yeah. And I want to I know we're kind of wrapping for the day, but I just want to kind of take a second on that point of that's the beauty of being in a creative space, right? Like maybe it isn't you or me for someone, but the thing is there are so many approaches. Like you can find a space for you, and finding that space where it makes sense to you, and you find, the people that that makes sense to you, and that you feel like you can be comfortable with and safe with, that you want to work with, you can, because it is so varied, because creativity is so different and people teach so differently and approach it so differently, you can find the one that works for you, because it's out, it's out there, you can. And that there is room at the table for everyone, right? So I like my literary novels, and I love a steamy romance, and I've learned to understand and appreciate what romance does and what it is and why it matters, and and then there's all these genres, in between, right? Those two, and all of it, there's room for all of it, because it all matters and it's all important to the collective creative space. And so I love that, you and I have super different approaches, and we work in totally different genres. We sometimes our genres will overlap, but we work in very different, we can work in very different spaces, and see different kinds of creative work come across our desks, but we still have so much in common. And it's the same way where we can learn from, you were talking about, this was offline, but reading a book by Rick Rubin, which is really about creativity in music, but creativity is creativity. And
that's right.
Learning from photographers. I love watching Chef's Table on Netflix, about chefs who run these restaurants, who are innovative in the food space, and who take a super craft focused, intentional approach to food. And it tells me something about the creative life, right? And so creativity, we can learn from anything and everything, and the opportunities are all there, and there's room for everybody at the table. And I think that's really, really important to remember that. And so I'm glad that you kind of mentioned that. I think that's really important.
Well, everyone, if you did not leave this space pumped up, what are you doing with your life?
You're going to need to go take a look in the mirror and make a change.
Come on. Listen, I'm questioning your life choices. No, actually, I probably am. But I hope that you feel excited, and I hope you will carve out some time for yourself to write today. Maybe even listen to another episode of Story Deep Dive.
And one more podcasting in, now you're hooked.
Come on, get it all in there. And thank you for joining us with this bonus episode. If you have not done so already, don't forget to visit us online at Story Deep Dive, and anywhere that you listen and or watch us, please do your girls a solid and leave a review and a comment. We would love to see your comments if you have questions for these future bonus episodes, like we can start gathering them. But yeah, and which I don't think we've said enough, share this with your writing friends. Now, I think we had a whole bunch of good juiciness for whoever, but today, but I would say share it with your writing friends, especially if they're writing in the areas that we're talking about, but even more so if there's something that they can learn from it, even if they don't write in the areas that we're talking about right now. Yeah. We will probably touch your area soon, and if not, you can make a book recommendation in a comment.
Yeah,
okay?
Drop us a comment and be like, talk about this book. We're looking. We got our eyes peeled.
We are starting to thinking about our 2026 reading selections. Mm-hmm. So definitely come through. So visit us online, leave a comment, and as always, we are so glad to have you. But your girls are out. Have a fantastic day, and as always, happy writing. Goodbye.